Hey everyone, welcome to Chain Out Podcast. I'm Jeremy. With me as always is your co-host Daryl.
What's happening, everybody? Glad you could come along and listen to us on a special occasion. How are you doing, Jeremy?
I'm doing great. Special occasion, Daryl. What special occasion are you talking about? Is it the one I'm thinking about?
We've got a lot of things to talk about, a lot of special things happening on this episode, but I mean, the big thing that we can start with, who thought that we would ever get episode 10?
Episode 10! Boom! After this, I'm not going to be able to count the episodes on my hands anymore.
Exactly. I know, 10 episodes, one a week. 2.5 months we've been at this, Jeremy.
That's all it's been?
It feels like, well, I mean, maybe when we start our Patreon and we release those episodes that are in the vault to the special subscribers, but those ones are going to stay hidden for a while. But we've, actually full 10 episodes that we've released anyway.
That's right. And those hidden episodes, because I know some of our listeners are going to want to see them and say, could it, we're still working and polishing right now. This is actually a little bit polished compared to some of those episodes.
Yeah, they were a lot. There were a lot to be desired. Yeah,
that's right.
They were very rough around the edges, like you said. If people think that we're rough around the edges now, well, if we're recording now in 16:9 4K, those ones were recorded on high 8 video cameras.
That's right. It was on a phonograph machine or something like that was what it was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, someone had to keep turning the wheel to keep it going. Showing our age now, Jeremy. But speaking of technology and looking and sounding great, I didn't realize that I was going to be joined by a professional radio broadcaster with a professional radio broadcaster voice.
Well, I'm so glad that you noticed.
I thought that was your cue to give your deepest, darkest, late evening drive home radio voice.
Well, I can do that. So welcome to Chain Out Podcast, where we discuss all things Canadian disc golf, Alberta, local, you name it, we talk about it.
There you go. I'd listen to that show.
Oh, well, that's good. That's what we're doing. We have to listen to it every week. I'm glad we like it.
Exactly. It's a good job I'm on one, right? And I edit it. I listen to it 15 times before it actually gets out to the listeners. So, yeah.
For sure. Well, you know what it was?
You're sounding good. You're looking good. I mean, there's so much to talk about. To start with, people that are just listening on Spotify, hopefully there'll be no more scratching. There'll be no more echoey, tinny sound or anything like that. You've got a new microphone set up.
Yes, and I do apologize to our listeners on previous episodes if they heard scratching. That was not our guests. That was a microphone hanging on my shirt, but we're trying to correct that. And one of the big points is that you and I have done these podcasts. We've had guests on, done a number of them by ourselves, and side by side, when you look at you and I, maybe your production's a little better, mine's better, but we feel pretty good about it. But then last week we go and we have a professional podcaster as a guest. Yeah. And I got to say, Joe just showed us what it's supposed to be like.
It's amazing that, this term gets thrown around, but, social media influencer. But she definitely influenced you, because after you watched that episode back, you definitely said that you needed to up your game. And up your game you did, Jeremy. You've definitely taken the step to the next level now. We're not quite at Joe's level just yet. I mean, obviously... our backgrounds have something to be desired. We're working on it. Every episode we're trying to get better, and she lifted the bar for us, but she definitely influenced you.
Yes, she did. And hopefully our listeners are noticing the changes, because we're always trying to get better. Continuous improvement is one of the things we say behind the scenes when we're talking and we're planning and strategizing. And thanks to Joe for so many things. Thanks for her coming on. Our last episode, that was amazing. It was so great to talk to her. Thanks for all the support she's giving our podcast as well. And the motivation she did to say, hey, this is what the next level looks like. She didn't say that, but just by watching back that episode, that's how she impacted me that way. So thanks, Joe.
Yeah, I think it was, it's been a great week for us since that episode released. Like you said, the support from Joe, and the support has grown in our community as well. And we've seen that, there's one way that you can track it in this industry, whatever this industry is classed as. But in this podcast world that we're doing, the likes and followers and comments and things like that has increased. So we thank everybody for listening, for watching, for liking and commenting and things like that. And if this is your first episode, if you just watched Joe's episode, maybe this is your second episode that you're getting to watch, welcome along. This is what we do. We have we have a good time. We talk disc golf.
Yeah, we talk disc golf, and we talk Canadian disc golf. We talk Alberta disc golf. We talk about what's relevant in that area and arena. We will touch on some of the big stuff because sometimes big news is just so big, but we know there's a lot of people covering it. So you're going to get your Canadian content when it comes to disc golf with Chain Out.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then for the people watching as well, you've upped your background game as well, Jeremy. I mean, you're looking like you're on Celebrity Squares or...
Yes, it could be Hollywood Squares, Wheel of Fortune. I don't know what's behind that disc or that disc. I just tried to, the board games, that's another passion, another hobby of mine. But that was another thing I noticed was that nice, clean look that Joe had. And I'm like, how can I do that? Yeah. And a whole bunch of construction paper and some discs, and look where we're at.
You don't have to tell them how you did it, Jeremy. You have some sort of, mysticism there. Smoke and mirrors.
Some special blocks that I got specifically for this reason.
Yeah. No, you're looking awesome. You're sounding awesome. Ready to go. I mean, it's episode 10. We've got to roll out the barrel a little bit, right?
That's right. And, I can't continue without complimenting you, too, as I see you're sporting another piece of Edga gear today.
Yeah, got the nice Wonder Bread stamp or Wonder Bread design on the hoodie.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're looking, we're obviously in the winter, we're coming, the temperatures are fluctuating, but if you want a nice warm piece of clothing to wear while you're out disc golfing, get the Edgar hoodie, because I tell you, it is so nice and warm.
So nice and warm, almost too warm at times, I think, depending on when you got a whole bunch of lights and spotlights on you. Exactly.
Yeah, to say that it's not really a hoodie that you want to be wearing inside in a small office with lights on you. Yeah, I'm a little bit it's a little bit warm in here, but we're plugging away. We're the things we do to make the show look better.
That's right. Well, let's talk a little bit about a couple things that we haven't got a chance to touch on. And one of those things is that we're 2 weeks into putting league now that's happening in the Edmonton area. Yeah. And I'm participating in that. It didn't quite work with your schedule, but I've gotten out the last 2 weeks.
Nice. How's it been going for you?
Well, the first week I felt like, wow. I felt like I started right where I left off when I ended putting league last year. So it was like no reset, nothing to learn. I think I had a hot round where what you're doing is you're doing 3 rounds, putting 25 putts in total, 5 from 15 feet, then from 20, 25, 30, 35. And I had one round where I got 18 of the 25 putts, and I was pretty happy with that. Nice. That felt good. Job. And then we go into this week that just passed, and it felt like I forgot how to putt altogether.
But isn't that typical the way that we play disc golf? Like you have that hot round, one week you play and you can't throw a disc wrong. And then the next week it feels like you're holding a plate in your hand and you just don't know, it feels like a foreign object in your hand, right? You don't know what you're meant to be doing with it.
That's right. And sometimes with that too is you go, okay, yep, I'm going to release it, and then you throw it right and you didn't even mean to do it. And I've seen it on the pro coverage, and it looks crazy, and you're like, how are they doing that? And then you realize anybody can do that. Yeah,
exactly. It's just one of those things. It's human nature. Yeah.
Well, so with putting league too, last year, I guess I should start with that. Last year we were our first putting league with Edga, and we were in some schools. So we were in some small, older schools, not a lot of space, and that's what it was. It was a school. We did putting league. We were there. We left. That's how it worked out. This year, Edga got an arrangement with a location called Cattail Crossing, and it's a golf course. It's a restaurant, and it also has a kind of a reception area or a hall area attached beside the restaurant.
Yeah.
So we have that whole hall area space, and we get access to this restaurant. So the last 2 weeks I've had a chance to go and try a couple meals there before putting league starts, I got a
Nice.
chance to meet Brandy, who is the manager who helped facilitate this arrangement for putting league with us. Amazing lady. She's so nice, so kind, and so accommodating. She just wants to make sure that our putting league's a success. Like I was worried that we're right next door to the restaurant. I'm like, you and I love the sound of chains, but I don't
Right.
know if while you're eating your dinner, that's the sound you want to hear. But
Yeah.
apparently, it's not a big deal. They knew what they were getting into, and they're more than happy with it. So that's been a great change this year is the venue, the location.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what about the turnout? Has it been well supported?
Definitely. I think we've had, I'd have to guess, I should have counted is what I should have done. Maybe I will this week, but maybe about 30 people is what I would say are there.
Wow,
So,
that's good. Yeah.
yeah.
From what
And
I
if,
understand, the location is on the north side of Edmonton, right? On the outskirts?
yes, north side, kind of you go out 127th Street past the police station and the correctional facility there,
Right.
head east a bit and you're there. But for me, I think it took me 20 minutes to get there from work, 20, 25 minutes. So it's not bad at all.
Yeah. I know. I think Brock was the one that set it up.
Yeah,
Or he
Brock
had,
is
yeah,
organizing it,
yeah,
the VP of EDGA.
yeah. I
But
think Kristen must have had a hand in this because it seems like everything is on the north side again. So I need to get it. I'm not going to let this die.
well, you know which side is better, right?
There you go. Yeah, apparently so.
That's the rumor.
Yeah,
So no, Kristen's involved. She was actually there last week. But she was putting. I don't know what she was. I don't think she was doing too much more than that. But she was doing putting. She was looking good there. She had five
yep,
nomads in her hand and was putting those
nice.
down like nobody's business. But
Yep,
there's a good turnout of EDGA board membership. You know, Mike Carey's out there and Brock is there. Tim is there. You know, I could go through all the names, but I'm still got to remember some because we do have some new members. So everybody
yep,
who's out there and helping out, that's fantastic. The other people who are out there is BR Disc Golf is one of the sponsors, and they're a disc
right.
golf
Yep,
store out of Camrose, right?
yeah.
So they're sponsoring it, and representing them each night is Teri Hong, who is an Albertan
Nice.
FPO that we should work to get on the show sometime because another great FPO player from Alberta.
Yep.
And Terry's been making the night fun. It's been a good time. So what happens is you're doing your regular putting, you're doing your 3 rounds of 25 putts, and then
Yep.
sometime in between there, you mingle over and you go see Terry. And week one, what she did was she set up a basket 25 feet away, and she
Right.
said, "You're gonna go and you're gonna shoot 25 putts or throw 25 putts, and they've all got to be straddle." And now,
Okay.
if you don't know Teri, she does have a very good fitness background and a coaching background and that type of thing there. And I think I saw through it right away. I think she just wanted to make all of us putters start squatting and getting in our exercise because by the time I did 25 straddle putts, I felt like I'd squatted quite a bit.
Your thighs were burning a little bit there.
They were, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was good because that's obviously, you know, everybody has a style that they like to putt, but a straddle putt is a great putt to have because how many times do you end up where
Yeah.
your disc lands right behind a tree? How are you going to
Yep.
putt? You can't putt with your normal staggered stance if that's what you use, so you got to step out and do the straddle. So
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's one of those things that there's so many things that you don't practice because you think, oh, that never happens. But that is that 1 or 2 times it can happen per round. You know, that could save you 1 or 2 strokes, and then that could be the difference of first place, second place, right? Maybe not
well,
in our
even
case, but yeah,
not in ours. Might be 42nd place to 41st place.
yeah, but you know, but yeah, no, definitely practicing those. And I'm sure, like you said, everyone has their favorite stance for putting. So during those first 25 putts, everybody's going to be using that familiar stance that they want to use, right? So good to take you out of your comfort zone and just see how good you are.
That's right. And I think I really like the way that Terry and BR are building these extra side plan because what's happening is every time that you sink a putt, and she's videoing every one of those putts. So I don't know if she's going to be putting together some sort of stop motion or time lapse or something at a later
Yeah,
date. But it also gives her a chance so that she can interact with you and then count the putts later. But every
right.
putt that you put in puts your name in for a draw. And I believe it was like a
Okay,
$25 gift card to BR. So that's fantastic. It's
nice.
great. So this
Yeah,
week here, what she did was she tied up some of the chains on the right side of the basket, put you out 25 feet, and you had to throw 25 Anheuser putts. So they had to come out on an Annie. And if you ask Mark, because Mark was there, friend of the show, and he said, Jeremy, you made it look like you were going to throw Annie, but if best, they were flat Annie. But I was, I was telling him, you know what? They started to go right before they came back left. That's Annie. It doesn't matter how it happens.
Exactly. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. And it's another good thing is that mixing it up every week. Mm-hmm. You're not having the same drills, the same stance, the same, whatever every week. So mixing it up every week keeps it interesting. Obviously keeps everybody coming back for more to see what she's going to come up with next week.
I'm excited. Yeah, we'll see what she does come up with. Now, it was good to have Putting League because at the time of recording right now, the weather has finally broke, right?
Yeah.
We are no longer in the deep freeze. Yeah. And it was quite the deep freeze that we experienced. Anybody in any of Alberta, for that matter, whether you were Edmonton or Calgary, we had how many days do you figure that was of that deep cold weather we got?
Well, I think it started over about the Wednesday or Thursday, I think is when it started to plummet. And then, it must have been all over the weekend. So, I don't know, 5 or 6 days at least, I would say, if not longer.
Yeah. And one of those days
I'm just going to mention the temperatures that it plummeted down to. Like, we're used to cold weather in Alberta, but I think this is probably the lowest that I've ever seen numbers, showing up on the Weather Network when I looked to see how cold it is. It was minus 44, and it felt like minus 54 is the last number that I've seen recorded. So I don't know if you've seen any different, but minus 54 was I think
with the wind chill.
Like we said before, once you get down anything past minus 30, minus 35. Doesn't matter what the number is. It's just as cold at that temperature anyway. But yeah.
And the funny thing about it is before the cold snap, minus 20 and whatever we were seeing, if we saw that, was feeling cold. And it's just so funny how your body adjusts to the point that now that the weather is broke after having that deep cold weather, you go out there and you go, it's kind of nice out here.
Yeah,
but really it's still really cold.
Yeah. Well, you know what everybody should have been wearing? They should have been wearing their nice Edgar hoodies, and that would have kept them nice and toasty and warm.
Yeah, and if they had to, then that would have taken them through that super cold weather.
There we go. But yeah, like you said, the weather's breaking now. We're starting to see the temperatures rise up again.
Well, and part of that was with that cold weather, it ended up canceling Winter League on the Saturday that happened in there. That would have been week, I want to say 7, was it? I think it was week 7. So there was a decision to be made on it. And maybe it was week 6, but the decision to be made on it was whether we would have a week round where we would play 2 rounds in a row to make up for it, or we'd tack a extra week onto the end of the league. So we chose that as the option, but a little bit of inspiration, because I think when we were on the show and we were talking about that cold weather and Winter League coming up, you made me call out, and I said, I'm going to call this out. And you said, we're going to be a stickler on what calling out is, Jeremy. It's not being wishy-washy. It's actually making a decision.
Exactly, yeah.
So I'd made a decision that I wasn't going to play in that episode. And as a result, Winter League was already canceled. So that decision was made for me. But then what started weighing on my mind, and not just mine, but also Jana's, a listener of the show, was that if we didn't play on Saturday, because I don't know if Udisc rolls over on Saturday or if it rolls over on Sunday.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But with this streak, right? Like, and you had said, your streak got reset when you were not feeling well there. So that had happened. But I was still running a 41-week streak. And Jana knew she had a good streak too. I think she said she was a couple weeks ahead of me. So she must have been at a 43-week streak. So she went out, bundled up, played 9 holes at Hermitage, and took some pictures, and I think you saw them. She was just totally frosted over. Her hat, her face covering, everything was frosty. So real big props to her for getting out there and getting 9 holes done at Hermitage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I commented on it as well. Like, it takes a different type of person to have that commitment to disc golf, to keep that streak alive, to want to go out there, even if you only did the 9 holes, it still counts as a round. And yeah, good props to her. Like you said, we've mentioned her before on the podcast, so well done to Jana for going out there, keeping that streak alive. I know somebody else who did it as well.
Yes, there is somebody else, and that would be me. So
Yeah, check our Instagram or Facebook. You'll see or even on TikTok or even on YouTube. I think we posted a nice little video that you put together of what it took to keep that commitment alive.
and it was a little different. I think Jana might have played a regular round. My goal was to get a little content and get in and out as fast as I could. So I put on as
Yeah.
many layers of clothes as I could, grabbed 2 discs, a putter and a mid, went to Langholm, played 9 holes, and ran as much of it as I could.
Yeah, I think the end of the video, or maybe at the beginning of the video, you posted the time that you started and the time that you finished. And how long did it take you to complete your 9-hole round?
Took me 14 minutes.
14 minutes, and I think you finished, was it 4 over?
4 over, yep. I had actually
Yeah.
a couple decent putts, but you know what I found was, remember when we said if it's cold, your discs are going to be understable?
Yeah.
Well, I was throwing for my mid was a Wombat 3, which is a slightly understable disc. And I threw a couple forehands, and that thing turned into forehand rollers in the snow.
Well, that's good that, so forehand roll, so they were understable, or they were overstable.
No, they were understable. So I think I had tried to throw them flat, but they would just stand up on their end and then roll
Right,
and just
yeah,
roll
yeah,
down.
yeah. I'm not familiar with the Wombat, so
Yeah, it's not
yeah,
too understable, just a bit. But anyways, 14 minutes. And now my wife was
yeah,
really great. She came out, she parked, she took a couple of those videos, that one of me running. Thank you very much, Jen. Shout out
yeah.
to her. I don't know if she listens. We gotta get her on as a listener.
What do you mean she doesn't listen?
I don't know. She hears my voice enough.
I
She
was just
doesn't want
gonna
to hear
say,
another hour.
exactly. This is her break from you, and she doesn't want to carry on listening to you again.
That's right. So she did some of the videos in that, and then of course, so she was waiting. The car was warm, so as soon as I was done, I was able to jump back in the car, and we went home. And then she looked over at me and she said, "So now I know, Jeremy, it only takes 14 minutes for you to do 9 holes."
Yeah, when you say you're gone for 2 hours, where are you? What are you doing?
Exactly. I said, but,
Yeah.
and she's like, "And you only shot +4." I'm like, but.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, no, that's good. Good. Like you said, I know you were doing it for the content and things like that. You kind of messaged me beforehand, some ideas, sort of thing. But yeah, it seems to be one of those things that. I mean, were you doing it for the content? There must have been a little part in the back of your mind that was actually doing it to still keep your streak alive.
Oh no, that was foremost in my mind. I said I got to keep my
Right.
streaker live, and this isn't going to be a regular round because I just got to get it done. That was what I knew. I wasn't
Yeah.
going to be taking a lot of time on the tee box. This was get out there and get the court, get the 9 holes in, and then get back out again. But I thought,
Yeah.
can I make this fun? And that was what I hope. If anybody, for those
Yeah.
who watched, I hope you enjoyed it because that's what it was. It was about fun.
Yeah, it was funny that you say that. It was funny to watch you throw that drive on. Well, I don't know which hole it was. Probably hole 2 or 3.
6.
Oh, that was 6. Okay,
Yep.
but yeah, before the disc had even left your hand, you were almost starting to sprint after it. I'm surprised you didn't overtake the disc.
Right, maybe it was the layers in the snow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's a competition, Daryl. That's a sidebar, of course, but there's a competition where it's like the furthest you can throw a frisbee and catch it. I think that's part of like
Yeah.
the competition they do every year.
Yeah. No, I've heard that as well. Yeah. No, I was thinking that you were going to say, because I know there's like Guinness records and all that for the fastest round of disc golf and things like that, and certain requirements that it has to come into. But I wonder, maybe we can do some research or whatever. But if anybody knows what the fastest round for a round of disc golf is, I mean, you must be flinging that thing as far as you can, and then I guess at that point you're only as slow as you can run.
That's right. And it's also your shots do have to be somewhat accurate because if you throw it way wide and you're taking 5 or 6 shots on a hole, well, that's going to slow you down. You've got to still have a little bit of accuracy or at least putting it closer to the basket each time.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, but yeah, good job for both Chain Out podcast host and Chain Out podcast listener for keeping their streaks alive. So good job for both of you.
Thanks, Daryl. And
I did not keep my streak alive. I let mine lapse, and I'm starting all over again. So I didn't venture out this time.
Well, and I guess maybe that's something about it. It depends on how many weeks you have of your streak. So 41, I went out in that weather. What
Yeah.
did you have? 4 going, maybe 5 going?
Yeah, it was, yeah, not very many. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I
But
think
it's
if
something
you
to,
were at
yeah.
40, 41, you would have been out there right beside me, I'm sure.
Yeah, I probably would have been. If it, it's a different story when, I mean, yeah, I probably would have done. And I think I would have only done because you did.
Oh, well,
That
thanks.
competitive. If I'm keeping it, if I want to keep my streak alive, then I'm obviously trying to keep competitive with you. And if you went out, then I would have had to gone out.
Yeah. So with that and all this talk about Udisc streaks, so you've reset yours. A
Yep.
number of people probably did who didn't get out. I'm sitting at 42. Jana's sitting at 44. Drop a comment. Let us know what your Udisc streak is, and if it's really high, we want to see a pic from your phone too, because we want to want to see the proof that you're at 97 or whatever you're at. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
now we won't have a problem this week because with the weather, Winter League will be back on. So we'll be at Rundle and we'll give you an update after that, probably on our next episode. But it is good that we'll be able to get back out there and play again.
Yeah, I'm excited to get out again. Although the snow has fallen, so we have to go back to the ribbons or going out with a partner and things like that. But I'm just excited to get back out. It's been a while.
Yeah, well, and if you can find some people to go out, you can get out and you can socialize and do all that
Yeah.
stuff that makes a good round.
Just want to pause for a second, Jeremy, because I've been waiting for a break in the conversation to acknowledge it. But I just want to say, cheers.
Cheers. The minions say cheers.
Okay, good. That's all I wanted to say. Just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that we're still keeping the streak. I see. I can keep this streak alive. Episodes I go with a drink. I'll keep that. That'll be something for the future.
That's right. So, Daryl, what do we leave to the end of the episodes, but we're not leaving to the end of the episode this week?
We say it every week that we need to shout it out earlier, and then we kind of get distracted. I mean, in fairness to us, we've had a lot of guests on the podcast recently, so that's been our main priority, making sure that we accommodate them for time and things like that, make sure that we're available when they're available. So things have kind of cropped up in that regard, but we always leave it to the end. If you do get to the end of the podcast, you will notice that we tend to shout out our socials at the end, but we're not going to do it this week. If you've gotten this far in the episode,
Which we hope you have.
Drop a like on the video or on the podcast. Leave us a review on Spotify and Apple if that's where you're listening. If you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment. Make sure you drop a like on the video and subscribe. Why not? If you're already listening to this far, hopefully you're enjoying it. Subscribe and you'll get to watch all of them and get notified whenever we drop another video. So yeah, if you want to follow us on YouTube, search for YouTube for @ChainOutPodcast. Same on Facebook if you want to follow us over there. Jeremy keeps that up to date. That's Chain Out Podcast on Facebook, Chain Out Podcast on TikTok. We've been uploading a few more videos on TikTok as well now. We are on Twitter, but that's kind of a repost from some of the other socials. But Chain Out Podcast on Twitter as well. And on Instagram, @chainout_podcast. So make sure you follow us over there. We're always putting content out, daily content, in fact.
Yes, you've been doing a
Yeah.
great job at that.
We've been
Always,
trying.
I always want to give you a pat on the back. You mentioned I do Facebook, and you said I'm putting content regularly. Well, not half as regular as you do. So great job on everything you're putting out there for us. And as our listeners, if you see something that you like, let us know. If you see something you're like, not another one of those, let us know that too. We want all kinds of feedback because we're trying to make a product that you want to consume, and we appreciate you for listening to it and being part of this with us.
And I know it kind of, like I've said before, if you've listened to the other episodes, where it kind of it falls on deaf ears almost when the host of the YouTube channel or the podcast or whatever says, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment and leave a like.
Smash that like button.
Yeah, it really helps the algorithm, but, I don't think we're really too concerned about algorithms and things like that at this point. I think what we're concerned about is that people are listening and they're leaving a comment to say, great episode. Maybe they're not saying great episode, but whatever they want to say just to interact with us. to let us know if we're doing a great episode. Tell us what you didn't like. Leave a comment just so we know that the people that are actually watching the videos get to this point in the video, and it's not a 10-minute watch and then it might count as a view, but are you actually watching the episode and getting some benefit out of it? So yeah.
So definitely. So you guys, just so you know, Daryl and I enjoy doing this, and we're going to continue to put out this content. By you guys leaving a comment and giving some feedback, you can help us direct on what you want to hear. But rest assured, we're going to keep putting it out no matter what. So
yeah, absolutely.
Now, you were talking earlier about a bunch of achievements that we had. So talking about our socials, and this is not call out to keep subscribing. We did that part, but we do want to give you guys and celebrate some of the things that you've helped us achieve with our socials so far. And Daryl's got a little list for us that are a couple examples.
Yeah. So, I mean, some of the milestones might seem little to you, but to us, they're kind of leaps and bounds, from what we expected and from where we're going and what we can see happening. But on the last episode, 2 episodes ago, we mentioned that on YouTube we had 40 subscribers, which was double what it was the previous time that we announced it. But now, as of today, we have jumped up again. And as of today, we are up to 53 subscribers, which is amazing for us to think that we're jumping, every time we check, we're gaining a subscriber a day sort of thing, or they keep going up. So yeah, whatever we're doing, we're thankful for everyone that's tuning in from however you're finding us, whether it be from watching previous episodes or whether it's, you stumble across us on TikTok or Instagram or however it's getting out there. But we appreciate everyone for subscribing.
Yes. And I don't know if I've ever told you, Daryl, but I grew up on Sesame Street. That was the show. That's what brought me up. And I still have a Grover stuffed animal. He's one of my favorites, right?
Yeah.
But I also do remember the count, and that's what I'm getting reminded of this one here. So it's like 10 episodes, 53 subscribers, like that's what I feel like, and that makes me excited.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I hope you don't want me to do the voice, but you could do the next one as well. But the little milestones, and like you said, we're not really keeping track of who beats who or where we are and things like that. But another milestone that we recently hit, well, there's 2 really, but on YouTube, one of our videos now has over 100 views.
100 views! That
one caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting it. Yes, 100 views. Yeah, so go and have a look on. There you go. Go and have a look on YouTube. Excuse me. Go have a look on YouTube and write in the comments which episode got over 100 views. Hopefully, by the time you get to watch this video, there's more than one.
Definitely.
Yeah, and the other milestone that we just hit, which was just recently, one of our reels on Instagram, we had a notification, but it far surpassed the notification. The notification was that one of our reels had over 500 views, but when we last checked it, I think it was at 670. So
670 views!
That's hilarious. Yeah, so I don't want to say any more numbers now.
That's it. If you say a number, the count is coming out this episode.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Please subscribe, please comment. Everything is going up.
And thank you for everybody who already has, and for everybody who's sharing this with their friends and with their family. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Now, one of the things we are going to get into, and we want to this is a little early in the year. We're still in off season. And talking about off season, there's a lot of different stages of off season, I guess you could kind of say. We were talking about that a little bit off air. It feels like when you get into disc golf off season, then that's it. It's off season, and then you get into playing season and tournament season. But really, the way we look at it is there's a little bit of off season, and what that happens is usually before Christmas, before the end of the year, everybody is very cagey about what's happening. Players don't tell you where they're going. And what they start to do is they start to dump their discs, and the manufacturers start to dump their discs. So that starts the rumors. Are they moving? Are they going somewhere else? And then after that, what happens is we get into the new year and we start getting big announcements of people moving and where they're going to. And we start to find out that information. And then we start to see that they're putting out their tournament schedules and that kind of thing there.
Yeah.
And after that, we get right back into what do we get to? The All-Star weekend.
Yeah.
And then we get right into the season. So we're kind of right in the middle of that. And there were some big announcements here. And as we said, we're Canadian Disc Golf Podcast, but we do want to mention there was, big announcement. Eagle McMahon, of course, going to MVP, reuniting with Simon. That was a big one.
Yeah.
And what else?
Yeah, we also had Gannon Burr leaving Prodigy, and he signed with Discmania.
Yep.
And another MPO name, big name, rising star, joined him at Discmania, Alden Harris. Good to see him.
Yes.
He left Prodigy as well, going over to Discmania. And on the Canadian side, speaking of Discmania, Max Rajitnik also re-signed with Discmania. So 6 years, I believe, that he's been with Discmania now.
Yeah, and Max is one of those guys I think you've had a chance actually to see play when you were spotting out at the Edmonton Open at Cattail Crossing last year, right?
Yeah, he was one of the MPOs over there, yeah. I think he ended up finishing second at that tournament, but yeah, definitely a good guy, seeing him throwing on my hole.
Yeah, and I saw him out at TCO as well, and yeah, he's a great player. So congrats to him on having another contract with Discmania, and hope to see lots of good things out of him. Yeah. And then we do have some pros, maybe Canadian pros, who haven't really announced where they're going and where they might be. We're still waiting to see, I think, if Chantal Badinsky re-signs with Prodigy, and I don't know if Thomas Gilbert's contract is up or not, but he's with Thought Space, right?
Thought Space currently, yeah. I think, and I think, like you said, to a certain degree, I don't think we're going to see too many more announcements. I think people want to get those announcements out the way. They want to get them signed and things like that, so that they can kind of move forward, get that prep work going for the rest of the off season, so that they're good to go. Don't have to do any press, or don't have to keep things under wraps much longer. Because imagine it's kind of difficult for when you're going to sign with another team or a manufacturer. You kind of have to keep your obligations to the sponsor that you're on, but yet you also want to be getting out there and being more vocal. And I guess you're excited that you just signed with a new manufacturer. You want to get out there. Maybe you got a new stamp on a disc that you want to promote as well. So you don't want to leave it too late in the season to be announcing those sort of things. But
true. And once you do kind of get that under wraps and they start announcing and then they start planning what their tournaments are, I hope to hear soon a little bit more about the Canadian Disc Golf Tour, because we've heard a lot about the pro tours that are happening down in the US, but we haven't heard any of the locations or the tournaments that are going to be part of the Canadian Disc Golf Tour this year. We do know some of them that were part of it last year. For example, Tournament Capital Open out here, TCO in Kamloops. The Big Bear Classic in Canmore was part of it. Falcons Flight. They were all part of it last year. Hopefully they are this year as well. But we want to talk about the Canadian Disc Golf Tour for a moment, because Daryl, you had a great idea of how we can kind of have some fun with the tour this year and maybe get the audience and the listeners involved as well.
Yeah, it was kind of inspired by a few other podcasts and things like that, where they've done their own takes on the pro tour, but they'll do a fantasy pick. They'll different versions of it I've seen, but on podcast, two hosts each get their picks and pick their players, and then whether it be week by week or at the end of the year, bit of a fantasy disc golf draft, bit of a different spin on it for us. I know you were excited about it as well when I mentioned it, so it's going to be good, because it's not just going to be on the Pro Tour. We're actually going to be using the Canadian Disc Golf Tour. So we're going to be picking different players from the Pro Tour. So that'll get you, hopefully we'll be throwing out some names that not many people have heard, giving other people shout outs on the Canadian Tour. And hopefully you'll get to learn some new names going forward.
Yep. So if you want to follow some sort of fantasy draft for the Disc Golf Pro Tour, which is the one that a lot of people are familiar with in the US, lots of podcasts can take care of that for you.
Yeah.
But we're going to specifically, when we talk about Pro Tour, we're talking about the Canadian Disc Golf Tour. And we're going to follow the Canadian pros. And sometimes we'll get a US pro come up to some of those tournaments as well. But that's the one. So if you get out there and you go to CDGT, so the initials Canadian Disc Golf Tour.ca, you're going to get some information there. But Daryl, we spitballed, we threw some things around. Why don't you let everybody know what we're going to try to do with this fantasy pick?
Yeah, we went back and forth on a few different scenarios and a few different ways on how we thought it could work. And I think we came to a conclusion in the end, I think, that works for everybody. So the way that we're going to do it is we're going to pick six pro players every week or every tournament.
Yes,
and
every
that
tournament.
has to be 3 MPO as well as 3 FPO. So we have to have 6 players on our team for that tournament. But we're going to do the picks in a snake draft. So whoever picks first gets to pick the top pick. They get 1 pick. Then it goes to the other player. That person then gets pick 2 and pick 3. And then that will go back over to the first player where he'll get to pick 4 and pick 5, and so on and so forth down until we've got 12 players picked.
Right. And
now,
with that, we're not going to focus on one. It's open pool. It's MPO, FPO, pick who you want.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not MPO first, FPO. It's mixed pick who you want, whoever you think is going to do best for you that week. Now, the reasons why you might want to pick certain people is based on our scoring system. Is whoever you pick, if they win the tournament, you're going to get 5 points. If they come in second or third, so if they make a podium finish, that'll be worth 3 points. And then if they finish in the top 10, that'll be 1 point. So best case scenario, every one of your pick finishes first, second, and on the podium, 6 spots available. The best you're going to get is 22 points.
Right.
So you could end up with a 22-0 week. 22 points for the person that has the lucky picks, 0 for the loser.
Hopefully you're not predicting what's to come.
Well, you never know. But yeah, I think it'd be pretty hard to pick, top 6 on, top 3 on both sides. But that'll be the scoring. So what that'll do is then tournament by tournament, we'll be adding up those total points. So it might be 10 points to 15 points, 1 week. It might be 12 to 6 the next week. It might be 22 to 0 the next week. So we're going to add those totals up. At the end of the season, the person with the most points is going to win the points total.
Right.
Now, flip side to that, if you win, let's say you win 16 to 15 total points that week, well, then you're going to win on that tournament. Sorry. You're going to get 1 point in the tournament standings. So tournament by tournament, whoever wins, regardless of points, if you have the highest total, you're going to win that week. So at the end of the season, we're going to see who had the most amount of tournament picks, tournament wins.
Right.
So that'll be the second way to win. And then if it turns out that I win the weekly points, the total points league, and Jeremy just happens to win the weekly, the tournament league.
Yep.
That's where you come in. You, the listeners, you, the viewers, because every week we're going to release our picks, and then however it works, we haven't decided on the ins and outs yet. We'll release more dates when we get closer to the draft and things like that, the fantasy drafts. But when we release our picks, you're going to have a chance to vote on who you think has the better team and who's going to win that week. So if at the end of the season, I've won the points totals, for example, Jeremy's won the league totals, whoever has the most listener, viewer picks will be the deciding vote. So you get a chance to vote as well.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty fair way of doing it, right?
I think it is. And the nice thing about the Canadian Disc Golf Tour is you mentioned weeks, but really, and you had said tournaments, it's really what it boils down to is tournaments. So there's going to be a lot of time. So we may have our picks decided for a tournament a week or two before the tournament happens. and then you're going to have a chance to vote for a couple weeks for who's got the better picks, and then we'll see what rolls out of the tournament, and then we'll start getting ready for the next one.
Yeah, I think it's just ingrained into me to say weekly picks and all that. But yeah, definitely picks for tournaments. Who knows what our schedule is going to be like when we get back into the disc golf scene. Obviously, we're going to want to be playing in a lot of tournaments this year, or as many tournaments as we can. We hope to have some guests on the podcast, so we'll have to try and squeeze the podcast interviews in. Excuse me. As well as, our own league participation that we're going to try and get into as well. So the summer months are definitely going to be busy for us. Whenever we release the episodes, what we were discussing was maybe having a quick, short 15-minute or whatever it might be, a little side podcast that we release. So you'll still get the weekly episode where we talk everything disc golf, have some interviews, things like that. But we might also look at releasing a smaller, bite-sized fantasy podcast as well, or episode maybe. It might still be under the Chain Out podcast brand, or not brand, but it'll still be us. But instead of it being your Wednesday weekly episode, we might release one on a Thursday or a Friday, just closer to the tournament when we make our picks, and release that one as well. So you might be getting some bonus episodes for that. So stay tuned. We haven't exactly decided all those details yet, but that's what the draft is going to kind of look like. I'm excited for it. I think, I don't think I've ever seen anyone do the Canadian Tour again. And I think the way that we have it set up, the fact that we have to pick 3 MPO, 3 FPO, and like you had mentioned before, like if it is a weaker male field or mixed field in the MPO, and that there just happens to be, like you've said before, nothing's stopping any of the professional players, south of the border coming up to play in any of the tournaments. So there may be one week where, who knows, Paige Pierce comes up and wants to participate in a tournament. You might think that she has, she's got that win nailed in. So you take her first.
Yeah, and that's exactly how it could happen. Now, I would tell everybody who's listening this is our way. We've actually gotten some feedback already that people have enjoyed our Canadian content side because it's giving them an opportunity to hear more about Canadian disc golf and stuff that they may not have followed before. So this is just one more way that we're trying to offer that to you and get some names that maybe are not your household names. We want to start making them your household names and getting you to pay attention to them beyond the Simons and the Pauls and all of those people. So what I've got here, and I'm not going to spend long on it, but I'm just going to throw out some names to you. And these are some people who were leaders in the 2023 Canadian Disc Golf Tour. So when you get to the cdgt.ca website, you're going to check this out. Now, who finished first last year in the MPO side was someone who's relatively close, just in the neighboring province to us, and that's Casey Hannemeyer.
Yeah, so name that everyone should be familiar with that name.
And if you're not, get familiar because you'll see him around. He's a great player. I think one of his handles is like Chunk Discs or something like that, isn't it?
That's what he is on Instagram. Yeah, Chunk Discs.
Yeah. So he's a great player. He came out to the Edmonton Open this past year, and we got a chance to interact with him. And he took part in the Gander Slander that was there, and he threw so many discs after his round to help for our entertainment and to get us some prizes, and that was great.
A really good guy. One of the recent trends on Instagram was to post a photo of you with the first professional that you ever met.
Okay.
And I never had a photo with him, but Casey was the first professional that I'd ever been with. And, obviously Casey was sponsored by Gander Disc Golf. And I volunteered at the Edmonton Open. He was there as well. And, after the tournament, everybody had packed it, or everybody had left. All the players had gone home. I volunteered to help take down, the tents and things like that and everything else that needed to be helped out. And Casey was there, right there with me. He was taking poles down to the tents. He was packing things away. Just such a good guy that, he's not one of those MPOs that's going to be like, oh, I finished my work now. I'm a disc golfer. I'm going to jump in my car and head home, or whatever he was doing. I'm sure he was probably staying or had some ties to Kelvin anyway, so he couldn't leave until he left. But definitely, not afraid to get his hands dirty either. So good guy.
Yeah, that's awesome. It just shows you how down to earth some of these pros are, and how accessible they still are, and that's what's great about
Yeah.
this sport. So
Yep.
other names, and I'll just blast through them
Yeah.
here, is Brian Freese. You're going to want to check out Noah Higgins. He's out of Calgary. He was also at that same tournament. Of course, you know Thomas Gilbert. If you don't, get following him, because he's one of the Canadian MPOs
Yeah.
who goes out on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. We mentioned Max Rajitnik earlier. He's one.
Yeah.
And then after that, I'm going to leave it to you. That's the top 5 from 2023. If there's any names you wanted to highlight there, Daryl, go ahead. But
No, I was just gonna say, if you look at the standings, you know, you might see some names that you recognize, but they might be further down the list. But if you look at across, you're gonna see the total. You're gonna see their total points for the season, but then you're also going to see the breakdown of the different tournaments that they played in, and just like you said, Thomas Gilbert is probably, you know, if not the one of the top MPO players in Canada, the best Canadian, you know, disc golfer export, whatever you want to call it. But he only finished 4th on the list. So you're thinking, well, how good is he? If he had 283 points and Casey was 200 points ahead on 485. But if you look across, obviously with his schedule, Thomas only played in 3 events. Casey played in 5. So just because they're lower down the list doesn't necessarily mean that they're not great players. It just means that some players are just staying on the east side, some players are staying on the west side. Like you said, Max also goes down and plays on the Pro Tour as well. So, yeah, definitely go and check out their names and all that, and see. You know, there's a lot of Edmonton pros on there that you might recognize. People in our area. You know, Riley Douglas is on there. He finished 18th. Jeremy Gauthier. You know, lots of different names on there that you're going to recognize. But hopefully you get to recognize a few more in the upcoming weeks when we start this.
Yeah, that's another good point to know early on, and just to say that this last year was the first year of the Canadian Disc Golf Tour. They had 9 events, and one of them was a major, and that was Nationals in Thunder Bay. So that one gave 1.5 times the points. But I don't think, well, actually, I know you and I looked through it, and there wasn't a single player who was able to get to all 9 tournaments last year. But maybe this year, now that it's the second year and people are still in that planning stage, if they announce the tour stops soon, then we might see players who make it to 7, 8, 9 stops on that tour. But let's not forget to move over to the FPO. Absolutely. So on the FPO side, some of the players that you're going to want to watch is finished number 1 last year was Colleen McInnes. She's from Ontario or out east, I believe.
I'm not too sure, but I'll believe you.
Well, that's one of the things we're going to learn. Number 2 is someone we've already mentioned tonight on the podcast, FPO Alberta player Teri Hong.
Teri Hong. Just finishing just 5 points behind Colleen. So it was a tight race there right to the end. And like you said...
well, we get her on the show, which we're going to work to do. I'm sure she can tell us all about her experiences in the tour and what she's got planned for this year. So that'll be great.
That'll be a great episode,
In the third position was Gabby Lee. And she's another great Canadian FPO, and she's sponsored, announced that she's sponsored by MVP this year.
MVP, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think she's re-signed,
And then Sophia Denecki, she is on the list. She's also sponsored. Yeah,
and just as a sidebar, she just announced that she's going to be going down to Australia to represent Canada. I forget which tournament it is or which... what she's representing Canada in. I think it might be, you know what? I'm going to let you carry on the names, and I'm going to find out for you, because that's important.
Okay. And while you check that, then I'm going to just announce that the 5th person on the list is Jessica Gia. And again, if you look on the FPO list, you're going to see a number of local names and people you know. Zoe Lorenz Bozer's on there. She's a great Alberta player. You've got Chantal Badinsky, who is one of the other players who goes down to the States to play in the DGPT. And as we mentioned before, the first Canadian player to win a DGPT event. And so she's going to be someone to watch if she gets to play some of these events this year. And then also we would be remiss if we didn't mention our guest from last week, Joe Henderson, is on here as well.
No.
Oh, and for that matter too, sorry, I got one more shout out with that. For that matter as well, not only is Joe Henderson on there, our other FPO guest, Kristen Swirls, is on this top list as well. So lots of people we've already talked to and people we hope to talk to. That's who you got to watch out for.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to go through the list, and eventually the more episodes we do, to be able to go through these lists and just check off the people that we've had on the podcast.
Yes.
But I want to just circle back to Sophia Denecki that she recently posted. Her and Stuart McKissick are going to be part of the Canada World Team Disc Golf Championship going down in Australia. So I'll put a link in the description there, because they are releasing some pretty nice, sick stamped discs. They look like they're Innova discs. They're going to expect to see some Firebirds, Valkyries, Shrikes, Destroyers, Wraith, Toros. The list goes on, she says, with the stamp on it. So I think every stamp or every disc that you buy is going to support her efforts and the Team Canada for going down under to represent them down there in that tournament. So yeah, good for her. Great.
So stay tuned. That's what's going to happen with the Canadian Disc Golf Tour and our participation in that tournament.
Yeah.
And hopefully we get to play a few of those events too, because they are out in our area, and I've got them on my list.
Yeah. Speaking of looking at tournaments that we're going to play and we want to play next year.
One of the ones that we would want to play is that this episode that you're listening to, our planned release date, and we hope that you're listening to it at that time, is January 25th. So tonight at 8 o'clock p.m., this is where I want to get the radio voice now. I'm really loving this, Daryl.
Do it. Go for it.
So tonight at 8 o'clock p.m., Mountain Standard Time in Edmonton, Alberta, Tundra Toss 3 registration opens. Be there or be square. So totally pumped, man.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. Yeah, so this was like I've mentioned before, this was the event where I went and picked up my bag tag last year, because it's like you said, it's not only is it the Tundra Toss 3 tournament that's happening there, the 1 day 2 round
3
You didn't do it on 5 points, 3 points, 1 point.
No, I had to give the listeners a break.
Okay.
But I did it in my head.
Yeah, there you go. Not only is it the third edition of the Tundra Toss, but that's where I went and picked up my bag tag last year. So the Tundra Toss tournament, as well as the Welcome Day, where even if you don't want to participate in the tournament, well, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't. But, anybody that just wants to go and pick up their bag tag, support Edgar, become a member, that's happening there as well.
Yes. And when we had Tim on the show, he talked about it and had some different ideas for this year. And we recently were able to have another conversation with him, and he let us know that this is the start of the year, the start of the league. He wants it to be a really good Edmonton disc golf community event. So he's talked to a number of different people. I'd love to mention all the names, but I don't know who's actually officially in or not. But we're talking about owners of disc golf courses. We're talking about disc golf stores. We're talking about, well, we do know who the lead sponsor is, and that's Pursuit of Motion, and that's Tristan Pisca. He will be there, and it should be, if you went last year and you enjoyed it, it should be just as good, but even better, because you're going to have a lot of representation of disc golf people in the community. There's going to be a disc swap. I really enjoyed that last year. Still throw a judge that Wally had put in there, and a soft judge that I like. Yeah. And lots of reasons to come. I think there's another reason to come too, isn't there, Daryl?
There might be. I mean, it hasn't been announced yet.
You mean
I guess we can officially announce it now. Can we break this news?
I think we can.
Do you want to use your radio voice again?
No, this one is all Daryl.
Well, on site for a limited time, come and get it while it's hot. No, it's not working, is it?
It's working. It's doing well. Keep it going. Just keep rolling.
Your very own, Edmonton-owned, Chain Out podcast will be on site we'll be doing some interviews. We're not sure exactly how it's going to work, but we'll be interviewing players. We'll probably be there in between rounds. We'll have something set up. So even if you're not a player, even if you just come down to the welcome day, if we're available, come over and say hi. We'll get you on the podcast. We'll do a quick interview, find out how you're doing, how long you've been into disc golf. If you've got any interesting stories you want to share with us, we'll add those as well. And yeah, we're excited to be there.
Yeah, we're very excited to be part of it, and thanks to Tim for inviting us to be part of Tundra Toss. And we are still playing, you know, what it might look like. We don't have that written in stone yet, but we will be there. We want to maybe, one of our thoughts is that if we can get talking with some of our listeners and talking with some of the people there, maybe what we can do is take all of that content and put it together into the Faces of Tundra Toss Welcome Day 2023, or 2024. Look at me, still living in the past. Yeah, so we'll have it official, but if you're there, come over, say hi. We're happy to meet anybody who's listening to the podcast and hopefully get some new listeners out of it as well. I think the two of us are pretty friendly, and if you don't approach us, we're probably going to approach you. So.
Yeah, exactly. We've said all this now, so we want some content. So if nobody comes over and talks, we're just going to walk around and just put the camera in your face and shove the microphone and...
Either that or it'll be, here's Jeremy at Tundra Toss. Here's Daryl at Tundra Toss. Was anyone else there? I don't know. They didn't want to talk to us.
I don't know. Yeah, we'll just pan around and see all the people's back of people's heads.
That's right.
No, but yeah, I'm excited to be there. Like I said, I wasn't... It's when I first started last year, so I didn't participate in the tournament. But I'm excited to get in and get registered. So I'll be registering in a short little while here.
That's right.
Making sure
I was going to say goals for this tournament. We've mentioned it before. Both of us at Rundle, our best scores are +1, even, kind of in that range. Neither of us have been below par. I'm going to put the heavy weight on my shoulders and say Tundra Toss, Jeremy's goal is to be under par for one round.
There you go.
You heard it here first.
Be optimistic. That's what I like, Jeremy.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting that. I like to live with my feet on the ground.
Oh, ouch. Burn.
No, the way that I look at it, I haven't broken even par in the summer in dry conditions when I can do run-ups and things like that. So I don't know how it's going to be. Whatever the weather is going to be like when it happens, playing 2 rounds in the cold, probably doing a lot of standstill throws. Yeah, I'm not going to be so bold as to make a prediction of what I'm expecting. I expect not to come last.
Right, there you go.
I shouldn't say expect. I hope not to come last.
Gotcha. Well, the one thing that gives me hope in my goal is that I've talked to Mark. Mark has had his best rounds in the winter. When we did our last review of Winter League and Steve Newman shot a -10 at Rundle in winter, those scores are out there. So for me to say I got to get 1 stroke better than my best, I hope I'm not putting the bar too high, even if it is winter.
But you got to bear in mind as well, this is coming from somebody that shot -8, a lights out round during the Winter League at Hermitage. So if you've got a -8 in you, then, you know. And
yeah, I guess
said it,
that's fair.
I said it before when I was starting off playing disc golf, is that my scores at Hermitage or Rundle were coming down and down and down, and I was getting birdies where I wasn't getting birdies before. And I got down to that +1, +2, +3, around that level quite consistently. I just felt that breaking even was just around the corner, but it never came. But who knows what's going to happen this year.
Yeah. The other thing I forgot to mention about Tundra Toss, and I've seen this at Putting League, is Edga had made a bunch of, had a bunch of Innova discs. What do you call that?
Innova.
Labeled, emblemed. No, not the Innova part. What do you call it when you crest a disc? What do you stamp? There you go. That's the word. It was eluding me. I told you words elude me. Sometimes I catch them, sometimes I don't. But yes, Edga stamped a number of Innova discs, or Innova, depending how you want to say it. And you can see 2 of them behind me right now. I've got a Mako on the one side in the purple, and I got a Toro on the other side. And they'll have some of those for sale as well. And they're really nice discs. They're very, just sleek, kind of, like, I don't want to say the word plain because that's not, but plain in a good way. That's another word. How do you say that one? It's like, it's just clean and crisp the way they look.
Elegant.
Elegant, I like it.
maybe.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Some stamps, and I think I've said that before about MVPs, that they really know how to do stamps. But you look at some other brands, or some other designs, and it's one color, like a silver foil or a gold foil, and the way that the design is, you can't really make out what is that? Is that the Kraken? Is that a Mary Poppins? Or you don't really know what it is because you can't really make out the design. But having it nice and simple, nice, clean, elegant design, you know what you're getting. You know what it is.
That's right. Now, there was one other social media type thing I wanted to talk about, and I actually want to throw it to you on that, is we talked about Thomas Gilbert. And Thomas Gilbert put out a cool video that I'm going to admit it now. I've only seen the thumbnail, and I've got it in my watch later list. But it was about what it takes to travel as a pro. And you had said you'd watched it and said it was a must watch. That's how it got onto my list.
Yeah, no, it's just really interesting. When I first watched it, I thought it was his tournament list for 2024, but it wasn't until I realized that it was actually a review of his 2023 tour season. And just the amount of, I don't know if anyone else feels like this, but when you tune into the post-production coverage every week or whenever the tournaments are on, and you're watching Waco, you're watching D-Glow, you're watching MVP Open, you're watching all the different tournaments from different places, and you just don't realize that they've got like a week in between or 5 days or whatever it is, depending on when the tournament schedule is. But these guys are traveling so much to get from tournament to tournament, and it's not always, obviously everybody would hope, the greenhouse gases and environmental and things like that. You would hope that they start on the East Coast and work their way to the West Coast, or vice versa, or north to south, or however it works. But just watching the video of where he started in, I want to say Severn Bay, but it's not Severn Bay.
Like, did he start right where the Pro Tour started?
No, the map started from his home base, I think, and he flew. Just the way that he flies all around America, and that he's going back and forth from tournament to tournament. And then it wasn't only his tournaments; it wasn't that flying from this place to that tournament to this tournament to that tournament. He actually had his car journeys and airports and things like that. So he would fly into Charlotte, and then a drive down to the course, and then a drive back to the airport, and then a fly to Pearson International, and then a drive to his house, and then back to the airport, fly to Vancouver, drive to Kamloops, drive to Victoria, back to the airport. So you definitely see all his travel throughout the year, and it's really something to, and that's Thomas Gilbert. I don't know if he's an average touring professional in regards to the amount of tournaments that he plays. Obviously, he came up and played. Let me have it. I have it.
He
written
played
down
Foxwood
here.
Open and
3, 4,
TCO
5,
and
6. He played 7 tournaments in Canada.
Okay, 7.
So,
wow.
Yeah, so a couple that we may not have heard of, but he played TCO. He played Foxwood Open. Had a bit of a break. He came back up and played Dreammaker Open in Southampton, quite near his house in Ontario. There, he played in the Canadian Nationals. Then he played the Discmania Open over there on the island. Then he played, I'm going to butcher the name, but it's La Fille Nominique.
Okay.
I think that was pretty good.
Sounded pretty
and then
good. Yeah.
He also, if I didn't say anything, you would have thought that sounded right?
Sure.
You wouldn't have called me on that. And then he played in the Ontario Provincial Nationals as well. So, but he documents all of that. And then obviously he played in Europe last year as well. So his flights to Europe and where he landed in Finland and the different tournaments he played. And he accompanies it with photos from his journeys as well. So he's got cool photos to go along with the tournaments and just, stops along the way. But just to see the amount of travel that he does, like he's always traveling, he's always moving from tournament to tournament. And if there's a down week, there's like smaller tournaments that he makes a note of the tournaments that he plays. But even in down weeks or things like that, he's playing tournaments just to keep his just to keep his form going and keep active and things like that. But it's really quite amazing to see how much effort and time and mileage that he goes through in a touring year.
Well, and then they go out and they give their maximum effort for 3 days or 4 days, or if it's worlds, 5 days at a tournament,
Yeah.
and then get on a plane and do it all again. I would have thought that with all of that travel, now that you mention it, that he would have been, all right, that's it, I'm done. I'm going back to Toronto. I'm gonna stay there for the off season, and then
Hmm.
I'm gonna get started next year. Just take a
Right.
rest and a recharge. But what does he do? He gets on a plane and he goes to Costa Rica.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah. No, it's amazing. I mean, good for him, right? I mean, maybe that's what you need after a full year of touring and keeping your body healthy, trying to stay injury free and things like that. You just need that thing at the end of the year just to relax and let yourself go. I mean, obviously, we spoke about it before last week with Joe Henderson that she interviewed Thomas,
mhm.
and when they interviewed him, he was in Hawaii on
Yes, he was.
Paige's recommendation, right? So I'm not sure the timing of that one, whether that was off season or whether that was a down week or whatever. But yeah, good for him to you need that once your body gets that tired, you need that relaxing. Why would you go and relax in Ontario during the off season when you could be down in Costa Rica?
Well, and it sounds like a tough task to do all that, and I don't know if I could handle it, but I'll tell you this, I'd sure like to try if I had that opportunity.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say no. But I mean, we obviously hear a lot of there's a lot of MPO players or professional players that are always talking about van life, touring life, things like that, how they
Right.
have their vehicles and they drive from place to place. Some might be nicer than others. Some are touring in RVs and things like that. I wouldn't say a lot, a couple of people are flying, right? From tournament
Yes.
to tournament. But to see the amount of time that he actually does fly, compared to the traveling that he does, because obviously being in Canada is, he can't bring a vehicle down with him. So he must be flying to an airport, picking up a rental, and then driving to the tournaments that he has to go to for the couple days that he's there, back to the airport and on to another flight somewhere else. Or even, there's a couple times where he drives from, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head now, the ones in Texas, Waco and
The Open at Austin?
the Open at Austin, yeah. So he would drive between those two. I think they're back-to-back weekends. So, he's driving that distance there. But yeah, it's just amazing what goes into being a touring pro.
And what that will also tell me too is when they finish a round, and so they've done all this travel, they've finished this round, they've been committing everything they can to it, and then they still spend an hour and a half talking to fans and signing discs. I'm going to have a heck of a lot. I'd have patience if I meet any of them. I'll have even more patience with them knowing that that's what their life looks like to be a pro disc golf player.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's one of those things. I heard Eagle talk recently on another podcast saying about the things that he regrets, not necessarily regrets, but wishes that he could do differently was, after a round when he's won a tournament or whatever, he can spend 15, 20 minutes signing discs. But if he's had a bad round, he regrets those times where he has, and he said he doesn't like to admit it, but he has walked past, the kid with the outstretched disc asking them to sign it just because he had a bad round and he wants to, that's the last thing on his mind. But
Right.
hindsight is always 20/20, and then, days or weeks later or whatever, he thinks back and he thinks, you know what, why was I, it wasn't that he was being such a jerk, but obviously time heals all wounds. So he thinks, oh, you could have spent 10 minutes just to sign those discs, even if it was just, whatever it might have been. But it just shows how much he grows as a person, that he says that he's not admitting, or he's not understating that he won't do that in the future as well. There might come a time where he's had a bad round and the last thing he wants to do is sign a disc, but he tries to keep it in the forefront of his mind that it's only 10, 15 minutes, those bad feelings will be gone, and at least he can look back on it with, yeah, I had a bad tournament, but at least I signed that disc, rather than, well, I had that bad tournament and I remember walking past that kid and that's all he's going to think of me now. Whenever he thinks of Eagle McMahon, he's going to think, that jerk didn't even spend 5 minutes to sign that disc for me.
Well, hopefully he doesn't beat himself up, because everybody has moments, and great for him to recognize it. Another thing too that's probably tough in those situations is you're feeling bad at that moment, And the last thing you think you want to do is stop and talk and sign an item or whatever it is. But that may be the very thing that you need at the moment. You just don't know you need it, because the positivity of that interaction and the joy that's going to come out of it is going to be something that's going to bleed into you and probably bring you up at a point where you need that positivity.
Yeah. Yeah. So mad respect. Is that what the kids were saying? Mad respect to...
If they were, they're not anymore.
I've just ruined that phrase.
Daryl stops another phrase.
Mad respect to the touring professionals, because there's a lot more into it than what we think. I mean, okay, they're still getting paid to play disc golf, but they definitely put up with a lot as well.
Yeah. So I think we've been talking for enough for this episode, or we should probably start to wrap it up. But, I normally take on the Romper Room shout-outs, but I wanted to hand the mic over to you, Daryl.
I don't have a magnifying glass or anything that I can use in front of me, but I just wanted to give a quick shout-out. We mentioned earlier on in the episode about ways you can get in contact with us, drop in likes and comments and things like that on videos and our Instagram and all our socials. But somebody who did reach out and sent me an email, and I want to give him a shout out, just to shout out our listeners, and that was Paul Graff, who sent me an email. He listened to the Joe Henderson podcast, the Joe Henderson episode, and he had some comments to say about that episode. So I just wanted to say thank you for listening, and thank you for the email, and hopefully we get a few more in the future. Yeah,
thanks a lot, Paul. I had a chance to meet Paul and play with him at the Hidden Gem last year. We got to camp together, had supper together. He's a great guy. It's glad to know that you were listening, Paul. I didn't know you were, and thanks for the comments. We appreciate it. Keep them coming. Keep emailing us, guys. Let us know how we're doing. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Now, you know what I've got to say here at the end, Daryl, is that by this point, everybody should be signing up for Tundra Toss, getting their registration in. Eventually, they're going to get to play in Tundra Toss. They're probably going to pick themselves up one of those nice Edga discs, maybe a Mako 3 like I have behind me, maybe a putter. And when they throw that putter at the basket for that first time, there's one thing it's not going to do, and it's not going to chain out. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, everybody, for listening and watching
and subscribing and liking and everything.
Do it all. And emailing. Okay, bye.
Bye.